Special guest here today on Reality Sandwich TV. It's Carolyn Adams, also known as Mountain Girl.
Yeah.
I guess that's a nom de plume that was given to you when you first joined the Merry Pranksters back in the early 60s?
That's correct. I got that name because I lived on top of a mountain nearby in a little cabin.
Yeah.
And they said, "Where do you live?" And I said, "Oh, I live up on top of that mountain over there." And they said, "Oh, well, you must be Mountain Girl." And I said, "Oh dear."
So how did you?
But it stuck.
You were just really, you were 17 or in your late
18,
teens?
I think, yeah.
And how did it feel to be going into that really free-form, beatnik, the proto-hippies?
Oh, I was totally ready for it. I had been a beatnik since I was 14 in high school. And so I was thoroughly prepared for this.
Yeah.
And so it was absolutely natural and easy.
I think you were saying last night in your presentation that you were looking for the others,
Yeah, I rode a motorcycle. I was the only woman on a motorcycle for 1,000 miles in those days.
So you're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, and it was a natural gravitation.
So I mean, it was a bit like a boys' club, because psychedelics genuinely has that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I penetrated the boys' club.
Yeah, you're one of the boys.
Absolutely. Well, I knew how. I had 2 older brothers, so I knew exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
So that made it very easy for me to penetrate that.
Originally you met Neal Cassady and he introduced you to the Pranksters?
That's correct. I ran into Neal Cassady at a coffee shop, and he just came over and sat down at my table and started asking me questions.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Do you want to go for a ride?" And I said, "Sure."
And the ride's still going.
And the ride is still going, yep.
Excellent. And so what was it like to meet Kesey, who's a bit of a titanic figure in that?
Well, he was so interesting. I mean, he was so unusual for, there was absolutely nothing shy and retiring about Kesey. He broke the mold of what you would think writers would be. He was certainly the opposite of an introvert. And was so full of good ideas and just such an open heart and so interested in everybody that came to his doorstep.
Yeah, it's interesting in that sense that the Kesey and the Pranksters, and then later also the Grateful Dead, that whole tribal family feel that's created by the collectives as they come together.
Yeah, and that was kind of accidental. We didn't really know that at the time. It just functioned that way. And so we really didn't name it until the Family Dog really was the first organization to label it tribal, and they called it Tribes. And they had the gathering of the tribes, and that worked. That worked. It was a little embarrassing because... but at the time, because we were a little sensitive about the issue with the Native Americans not wanting to get their organization stepped on by a bunch of affluent white people, but still it worked as a model, and still it's working better and better all the time as a model. So
what was some of the things that we can learn from the Pranksters experience with the acid tests and using LSD as a sacrament?
Well, we had not entered the sacrament stage. We were definitely in creative energy mode.
Yep.
We didn't really consider it a sacrament
until
later.
Wasn't it?
Well, but it's just, these ideas hadn't quite evolved yet, and they were just starting to come out. We decided what we really needed was a safe place to have a party that would last all night, where we could create a boundary, which now is called a temporary autonomous zone, is what it's called now. But that's what we were doing, and then creating enough of a festive atmosphere in there, and then really bringing up some chaotic elements and mixing it up. Now that's Kesey's thing, and it was.
Well, I think the legacy of Kesey's style is that the whole rave movement, like the prototypes, the foundations, are pretty much what was invented at the acid test.
I just think it's a natural thing. The rave thing is a natural thing. The acid tests were a little bit more artificial because we were taking live feed microphones and tape looping and backwashing around the room and using if we'd had video feedback, then we could have used video feedback really well, and bending time, taking film from the last event and getting it processed and bringing it to the next event.
Yeah, making magic. Yeah.
Making some magic, and just unusual effects.
I remember the essence of some of the recountings of the acid trips. There's that thing that happened with the group mind with the Pranksters, the unspoken thing. Is that what it was called?
Well, yeah, we had the unspoken. So we did do conscious group mind work. Ken was very much a fan of Fritz Perls, who was an early Gestalt teacher that lived down at Esalen, sort of in a little shack, and would teach this stuff. So. But the Gestalt, I think, was a little bit less formal than what the Germans would think. And the group mind thing, however, really doesn't work.
Right.
No.
It never holds together for long.
Never holds together. It's a little dangerous because some people, the more introverted ones, don't then engage with the process as much, and they get pushed around by it, and it becomes unfair after a while.
Yeah.
So group mind is very tricky, and I really don't think that it works for us phenomenally independent people.
Sure.
Yeah.
How much do you think, the pranksters probably are the most of anyone who's had to function under acid, like high levels of acid, and function in a role in the community, like they're putting on those events. And the whole idea of like, we've got to learn to actually be able to function on acid on a heightened vibrational state.
And we had each other to fall back on, luckily, so we kind of watched out for each other, because you're only getting high inside the context of the thing. So the whole setting up and tearing down, you're pretty normal during those states. So it wasn't so hard.
Yeah.
It wasn't really hard at all.
And what's your favorite memory of the time with the pranksters in that era?
Oh my God! Oh, my favorite memory is really having the bus packed up and leaving, and getting back home and getting something to eat, because by the next day you were so hungry you could eat cardboard, and we just didn't we didn't really take time to look after ourselves, and the whole thing of after a really long night of it, starting with early morning, loading up the bus and going to the place and setting everything up, and, it's really a 24-hour effort. And you finally get to lie down and just relax, and then replay it in your head and just go, oh my goodness, that was so incredible.
Right. So you've stayed within, psychedelic culture. It's your family, it's your community around.
No, I mean, but I live in the real world, so.
Well, we all do.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. I mean, as someone who's been such a participant in those fundamental years in the 60s, and now you're coming back, and you were explaining to me previously about the Women's Visionary Congress.
Yeah, we are putting on our 4th conference this October. And it'll be at IONS, which is the Institute for Noetic Science, and which is a very nice facility and big enough, I think, now to expand. And we do all women presenters, and then we have a lot of fun too. So
originally at the start we were talking about the boys' club of psychedelic.
Yeah, so we're trying to break out of that model a little bit, and get to know each other.
What type of things do you suggest for women who are into the idea of psychedelics who may not have stepped into the community?
Start small, start slow. Events like this, which are peaceful events that are not, huge sound stages full of, 120 dB sound. That's dangerous for people who are just starting out. I would say, peaceful settings, very low doses until you're sure that it's right for you.
Yeah.